Shalom. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to our elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us his truth. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful like Akim, teaching and preaching his truth. With all righteousness and sincerity, this is Yahweh Shai. Today's lesson is entitled, A Man Shall Desire to Go into a City and Shall Not Be Able, and Lord willing, you be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, which are the true names of the Heavenly Father and his beloved Son in the Paleo Hebrew. And as always, the sit downs, the lessons, the street speaking. It's for the remnant, the elect, the Israel, the Most High, to use the gospel preached. As always, a part of the gospel is prophecy, which the prophecies are the testimony of our Lord Yahweh Shai. And within the prophecies, it speaks about these different things that will be happening, chiefly in Babylon the Great, which is America, which Babylon the Great is the Lord's focal point of his judgment. Now, you will be having things happening worldwide, all right? The MOTB, the implantable technology, the RFID chip, that's going to be implemented worldwide, all right? But it's going to be very devastating here to Babylon because of the liberty and the justice for all, which is a deception that Esau has given the inhabitants of Babylon. But it's going to be very devastating here because of the social liberties that Esau gave the people the illusion of having. All right. When these social liberties be taken away through new policies and legislation, all right, it's going to be very devastating to the people here. Scriptures speak about Jacob's trouble, which all nations is going to be affected by it, but though the nation that's going to be affected the most are you Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And the prophecies as a whole is going to be very effective. Now, this lesson is inspired by what a brother put in the chat, all right, which was going into Germany, which Germany is a member of NATO, which America and Canada is a part of that alliance as well. It says, starting January 1st, 2026, Germany requires men aged 17 to 45 to obtain permission from the Bundeswehr Career Center to leave the country for over 3 months. This military service monitorized act change is permanent in peacetime for study, working, or travel. This ensures tracking for potential defense needs. And we've been talking about the looming draft, okay? Which, like I was saying, America is a part of NATO. Now, if NATO were to come out and say, hey, look, we need a draft, it's intensifying there in the so-called Middle East, which is Western Asia, which the scriptures call it the Valley of Decision or the Valley of Jehoshaphat, where the Lord is going to judge the nation's army. All right. If NATO comes out and say, look, we need more boots on the ground, we need more help, you already know America, which the prophecies speak about. I'm actually pull it up. The North American military having the draft here in Joel, the 2nd chapter. Now, the significance of this is the language. We're seeing that the age is from 17 to 45. Okay. This policy could very well be implemented in the very near future here in Babylon the Great. And what supports that is Joel. Okay. Let's go to Joel 2:20. But I will remove far off from you, talking about the elect, the northern army. This is addressing the North American military. And will drive him, which is Esau, and his military, into a land barren and desolate, which is Saudi Arabia. Let me pull up a map real quick just to get you some visuals. Let's put map of Middle East. Right. Okay, so we have the map here. You see you have the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia, the Persian Gulf. This little strait here is where you're hearing a lot about the Strait of Hormuz, okay, which is occupied by the Iranians. All right. So what Joel is saying is the North American military being brought to a land barren and desolate, Saudi Arabia. And when you look at it in a live camera view, it's full of, you know, sand and desert, so on and so forth, right? Barren land, as the prophecy say. Back in Joel 2:20, with his face towards the east sea, all right, he's going to be facing the east sea, which is the river Euphrates, which you see these two streams dumping into the Persian Gulf. You have the river Euphrates to the west, and then the Tigris River to the east, and it dumps once again into the Persian Gulf. All right. So the East Sea speaks of the river Euphrates, which the book of Revelation actually says it by name. Okay. Matter of fact, let's type in Euphrates real quick. I believe it's in Revelation 16, but Euphrates. Let me try to get the spelling down pat. Okay. Boom. Let's do that. Okay. Revelation comes up twice in the book of Revelation. Revelation 9:14, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. All right, so you have, through the Spirit, there's angels basically refereeing these nations coming to war over there in the Levant, or the so-called Middle East, right? It says the river Euphrates, 16:12, and the sixth angel poured out his vial. The vial, the trumpets, these are synonymous. It represents judgment upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, which is happening now, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. The kings of the east are who? Got the various kings of Iran. Forget their titles. They call them the and what is that title, man? Wow. Um, Forget the name. It's not that she that what we just brought up. But you got the Iranian kings, you got Vladimir Putin, you got the China Xi Jinping, you got North Korea, Kim Jong Un, you got Benjamin Netanyahu, okay, the way of the kings. All right, but I want to bring out how it speaks to the river Euphrates. So back in Joel chapter 2:20, but I will remove all far from you the elect of Israel, the northern army, the North American military, and will drive him, which is Esau and his military, into a land barren and desolate, which is which is this whole region. But you see how Saudi Arabia pretty much takes up at least 80% of the so-called Middle East. It says, with his face towards the east sea, the river Euphrates, and his hinder part, his back part, towards the utmost sea, which would be the Red Sea, which is really the reed sea. It's not red as in color, it's reed as in the plants that borders this sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because this is where Esau is going to get destroyed, because he have done great things. He have blasphemed the Most High. All right. Now, when America gets in a position where they need the more boots on the ground, they need more bodies, they could very well implement the same policy that we see being done here in Germany, which says Germany requires men aged 17 to 45 to obtain permission from the Bundeswehr Career Center to leave the country for over 3 months. And you got a lot of dudes over here with that whole passport travel energy. You know, they come over here, they hustle up. You know, they come back home, they hustle up for about 3 to 6 months, you know, run it up. And then they take what they earn and they go travel the world for the other 6 months. You know, or they may be what you call a digital nomad, where, you know, they work online, they do these online jobs making minimum wage, but in countries like Chiang Mai or Thailand or different little areas through Southeast Asia, you know, minimum wage goes a long way over there. You know, America could say, hey, look, all those individuals, you can't go out the country and come back to renew your stay. You got to come back home. All right. It says, let's read a little more and then we're going to get into some of these prophecies. But the policy is for potential defense, meaning if they need men to join the military, then, you know, they have those bodies there if needed. It says German regulation as of 2026, the law applies to men 17 to 45. If they intend to leave Germany for more than 3 months, they need approval from the Career Center. Purpose: this requirement is designed to maintain a detailed registry of citizens, which can be utilized for national defense even during peacetime. Scope: the regulation impacts Germans and possibly long-term residents traveling for extended work, school, or travel purposes. U.S. context: under the U.S. Selective Service Act of 1917, men aged 18 to 45 were subject to the draft during World War I. However, current U.S. registration only requires men ages 18 to 25. So this is already here, but it's from 18 to 25. So they can very well bump it up to 45. But as we went into the prophecies, the Lord is going to keep the elect, all right, from this time. And as you read up in Joel 2, and 15, it says, blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly, gathering the elect by this word. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children and those that suck the breast. The bride, let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber and the bride out of her closet. So in context, this is addressing the elect that believe in Yahushua. Let the priests, the ministers of the Lord, weep between the porch and the altar, which we doing that now at the camps. Let them say, spare thy people, praying for the elect, O Yahweh, and give not thine inheritance to a reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, where is their power? So those that's going to be kept from the northern army are those that are sanctified, the elect. All right, so we don't have nothing to worry about. All right, the Lord is going to keep us. And we know that Esau is a liar. Scriptures speak about never trust thine enemy. So he may, you know, have this language here saying, oh, yeah, it's only for 18 to 25. But that can change. It can go from 18 or it can go from 16 to 50 in men and women. All right, which we foresee that. Let's see this U.S. Army recruiting in 2026, effective April 2026. The U.S. Army has raised the maximum age for recruits to 42, with 17-year-olds permitted with parental consent. So they already changing the game. All right. So now let's go here to the prophecies. This is 2 Esdras 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Judgment is coming. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. And we speak about civil unrest, anarchy, sedition. Or once these people see that the government is truly not for them, which people are waking up to that now. All right, it's going to lead to people taking weapons in their hands and rioting against this place, which we don't get caught up in that. All right, that's not our fight, to overtake this government and establish a new government. We waiting on Yahushua to bring justice and judgment in the earth and establish a new heaven and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness, the throne of David. Okay. For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. It's going to get so bad out here to where people is going to be breaking in houses. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And as I was mentioning through the spirit, that people's going to see that their mayors, their politicians, the governors, the president, all right, is all controlled. Here's the point. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right. And this language supports that. So, in the very near future, Esau, he going to come down with great wrath. And that great wrath, a lot of it is going to be new policies, your social liberties, your constitution, your amendment rights, all that's taken away in the name of we need peace, we need safety, we need military, we need to control things. Things are getting out of control. People are rioting in sedition. They're coming up against mayors and politicians and governments and presidents. So, I just want to sound an alarm on that. Lord willing, this was edifying to the Lord's elect. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, and double honors to our elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us the truth. Shalom, Akim, stay watching.